I just got back last week from my third solo trip that I've done, so today's video is all about the solo trip. We'll talk a little bit about what it is and a couple of the key components to having a good solo trip. So, I'm Patrick Menefee. This is this week's Menefee's Monday Motivator. This is a newsletter that goes out on a fairly regular basis. Now, I haven't sent one out for a little bit now, so I haven't been as consistent as I should be, but that's okay. You can forgive me. If you got here from elsewhere, if you came from YouTube or somewhere else, welcome. And you can click the link down below in the description and you can subscribe to the newsletter, get it delivered ideally every other week. Sometimes I'm a little bit off. Now, what I'm going to cover in this video is a couple of things. One is what is a solo trip? And then the second piece is what are the three components that I find make a solo trip successful? This is the third one that I've done and each one has gotten better. This one by far the best. So we'll dive into a little bit about what those are. Now, what is a solo trip and why do one? There's a lot of stuff that goes on in our lives and in the world on a daily basis, and it's very hard to get time to just focus. We may be lucky if we can block out 2 hours here and there, or we can cut out some time after the kids go to bed and really focus for a little bit before we've got to go to bed. But we never get a large chunk of time, or it's very hard to get a large chunk of time. Now, if you do that on a regular basis, kudos to you. What a solo trip does is it removes you from all of the elements of your daily life, and it helps you create an environment where you can completely focus. Now, people will do it in a lot of different ways, and I'll get into that in a second. But the end state, the goal of a solo trip is, for one, to be a little bit of whatever you need it to be. But it's to get away from the noise, to get away from the whirlwind, to get away from everyday life, and be able to free your mind from the distractions of the day-to-day. Now, I've found three different things that are very important to making a solo trip successful. And I've refined these over the 3 trips that I've done. The first one and the most important piece is what is the intention for the trip? Now, there's 2 different ways to set the intention. One is at a high level. And in the high level, that's a lot of things like, is this a trip where you're just looking to relax and you're looking to get away by yourself and spend some time enjoying yourself? Is this a trip where you're trying to figure out some type of self-discovery where you're a little bit lost and you just need some time in your own head? Or do you have a specific purpose that you're trying to get out of this? Maybe you're trying to plan something out for your business, or you're trying to set a vision or something like that, this is what mine was. I was looking to set a vision for the next 3 years of my business and figure out the roadmap for the next 6 months. Now, the second layer of intention is once you know what kind of the broad topic is or the broad approach that you want to take. If it's a self-discovery trip, what are you trying to discover? If it's a planning trip, what is it that you're trying to plan? You can go into it with a broad idea, but you need to have a tangible takeaway that says, what is it that makes this a successful trip? Now, I can tell you from my own experience, the first trip that I went on, I got away, I had some good time to reflect, and I wanted to go back through all of my coaching, all of my notes from the previous 6-8 months. So I did that, but I didn't have a clear takeaway that I was moving towards. And so I got close to the end and just tried to figure out, okay, well, now what the hell do I do to move this forward? What does all this mean? In this case, the trip that I just did, I knew going into it that I was trying to create a 3-year vision and then a 6-month plan for my business, for coaching and for showing entrepreneurs. And by doing that, I was able to have a very clear intention along the way and a very clear focus on what the end result needed to be. So that's number 1, is set a very, very, very clear intention, both at a high level and at a low level. The second piece is create some structure, some ground rules, and figure out what you need to make it successful. There's a couple of different ways that people approach these trips. I know that there's some people that will go into these and they are 100% disconnected. They are not turning on their phone. They're telling their spouse and their kids and their work and everybody that you can't reach me for 3 days. You can go that route. I don't personally go that route. I go a little bit in between. But there's the structure that you want to set up for that focus. There needs to be some type of container. If the goal is to go out and focus, you need to have some type of container for that. The way that I approach it is I use my phone for music. I have my phone available so that I can talk to my wife and my daughter when they're going to bed and when we get up in the morning. And then throughout the day, I may take a break and I'll hop on my phone for a minute. But for the most part, I stay away from it. And that is my intention because I don't want to get distracted by that. The other piece of the structure is what is kind of your balance between, is it all work? Are you locking yourself in a cabin for 3 days and you're going to figure some stuff out? Or Are you going to add in a little bit of play? Are you going to have some fun? Are you going to go hike? Are you going to go do something else? For me, that's my thing is I always go out in the mountains and I need to have somewhere that I can go on a hike, go on an adventure, something like that, because it gets my brain going. And then the third piece is, what are some of the things as it relates to the structure? What are some of the things that you need in order to make this successful? So for me, I knew that I was going in from a planning perspective. And so I brought books. There was a book called Vivid Vision that I brought with me. That makes it a lot more successful when I've got all of these things that I know going into it, because then I can set the expectation for myself and I can set the expectation with other people. The third and another critical piece is location. I love to go to the mountains. I'll go rent an Airbnb up in the mountains that's not really too close to much. And that is kind of my happy place. Now, what I found as I've done this more and more is that there are certain things that I need in the house, for example. I love having a fireplace or a fire pit outside that I can go smoke a cigar, I can go read, I can go relax and kind of wind down for the night. That's one thing that I love to have, and it's a must when I go book an Airbnb. The other one is that there's plenty of these small spaces that don't have kitchens. I need a kitchen because I need to make a couple of meals. The third thing is a workspace. I need to have a table, and then I just need to have somewhere to work. I made the mistake on my second trip of I didn't look and I didn't have that, and so the only thing that I had was a couch and a little coffee table, and that it didn't really work for me wanting to lay things out and plan that way. So that's another piece. And then what do you want nearby? I mentioned before adventure and a little bit of fun and hiking and stuff like that. So that's, for me, I need to have somewhere that I can go. This last trip, it was about 20 minutes away to this amazing, beautiful place. My first trip that I went on, I could walk up the road to this trail that went to a waterfall. I also want to have amenities nearby. I've been at some where the closest place was the only thing they had was a Dollar General that was 25 minutes away, and a city was another 40 minutes away. Or this place that I went to, 15 minutes down the road, I could get to an entire city that had whatever I needed. So it kind of created that perfect in between. So those are the three things for me that make up a really good solo trip, and the three considerations to take into account. 1, intention. Number 2 is the structure and kind of the ground rules that you have for it. And then the third is the location. Where do you want to be? What do you want it to look like? Now, in next week's video, I'm going to share more specifics about my trip and about what I got out of it. Drop some comments below and let me know, A, have you gone on a solo trip? If so, how was it? What did you think about? What did you plan for? What were your intentions and everything else that I described? And number 2, if you haven't done one, what's holding you back? Have you thought about doing one? If so, you should get one on the calendar. It is very, very, very beneficial. So I encourage you to subscribe and click the like button. And if you subscribe, you're going to see next week the video that comes out, as I mentioned, about more specifics around my trip. So hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you back next week.